Today should never have happened. It's impossible to imagine what would possess somebody to commit such a horrific act. It's the worst of humanity. But it brought out the best in the rest of us. We saw our better angels come to the aid of our patients. Each of you rose to the occasion. And I can't tell you how proud I am of all of you. This place will break your heart. But it is also full of miracles, and that is a testament to all of you coming together and doing what we do best. Thank you for everything you did here today. We saw 112 mass casualty patients come through here in the last 4 hours. And 106 of them are gonna live. None of us are gonna forget today. Even if we really, really want to. So go home, let yourselves cry. You'll feel better. It's just grief. Leaving the body.
Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
And I'm Carly.
Today we are covering the season finale of The Pitt, titled 00P.M. Please note, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, no worries. Just come back and check us out after you've finished watching. And before we dive into the episode, we want to welcome Carly.
Hey, Carly.
We are so excited to have you on with us today. For those of you that haven't heard us bragging on her at the end of each of our episodes, Carly is the manager of the Pitt fan page, and she does a phenomenal job and has been so helpful with getting us content and people to talk to on the show. So welcome, Carly, and can you tell listeners a little bit about yourself and how you found us?
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. So,
of course.
I originally had a page for another show that Noah Wiley was involved in. And so that's kind of how I knew with him and some of the other crew members that are also from the TV show that came on this show. And I decided, after a few stuff that happened, I want to make some changes. And so I decided to make a page for the Pitt, and it just grew ever since.
Awesome.
Yeah, you've been really successful. How many subscribers do you have now?
Like over 16,000.
That's amazing.
And that never happened before.
That is awesome. So proud of you. You do such good work. You really do. Like the amount of effort that you put into the content that you put on that page, it's just mind-boggling. I don't know how you find all these sources. I'm so grateful that you do, because this show definitely wouldn't be the show that it is if we hadn't found you, and that if you hadn't allowed us to graciously use your content to talk about some really important things from the show. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, if it really wasn't for Noah and a few other people, I really don't think I would have lasted this long. But, the constant support and the love that comes from the cast and crew and even people that love the show, really been truly amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we are so super happy that you're here with us. So are you guys ready to get into the episode?
Yep.
Let's do this.
All right.
So episode 15 was written by the two of the legends, are Scott Dimmo, and directed by John Wells.
Mandy, Wikipedia was kind to you this week. It's a long one, but it's not full of crazy lingo. So what is the synopsis for this one?
Wikipedia was a little bit snarky this week.
A little bit.
Robbie talks the police into releasing McKay, citing her heroic work that day. Santos deduces that Max attempted suicide and opens up to him about a friend who killed herself. McKay attempts to persuade David to accept counseling. Langdon begs Robbie for a second chance, but the conversation devolves into an argument. A hospital employee is admitted with a crushed pelvis. Robbie has difficulty focusing on his treatment. Robbie guilt trips Flynn's father into allowing the lumbar puncture without his wife's knowledge by showing him the bodies of Pitt Fest victims. That was part of that snark I was talking about. Mohan's manic energy wears off and she cries in the bathroom. That's such a, yeah, that's what happened.
It's 100% accurate.
Yeah, it leaves out a lot is all I'm saying. Robbie gives a speech thanking the day shift staff and dismisses them. Dana takes down photos from her desk, contemplating not returning to the pit. King picks up her sister at a care facility. Santos discovers Whitaker is unhoused and squatting in a room in the hospital and invites him to live in her apartment because she's awesome. Abbott finds Robbie at the edge of the hospital roof and emotionally extorts him. That was like my favorite. Well, that just the way that they put that was funny. Abbott finds Robbie at the edge of the hospital roof and emotionally extorts him not to feel like a failure. The two then join several other doctors and nurses for a beer in the park before Robbie finally heads home. I just like the way that they phrased it as emotional extortion.
Well, it says here exhort. There's no T. Is exhort a word?
Oh, exhorts him. Yes, you are 100% right. That changes completely.
I was like, yes. I don't see a T in there.
No,
I'm gonna let her have this.
No, you're 100% right. I was just having this great time in my head picturing whoever wrote this for Wikipedia sitting there thinking, well, that was manipulative.
That was not called for. Jeez.
Right. I'm like wondering about that person, all of their personal relationships, if they thought that was emotional extortion. Exhorts is better. Yeah, exhorts makes more sense.
All right. So, yay or nay on this episode. I give it 5 rats in the bed out of 5. They gave me almost every single thing I needed for a season finale, and I thought it was just absolutely well done. What about you, Mandy?
I am going to go 4.5 rats, although I would never cut a rat in half. There are a couple things I'll get into here in a bit that just kept it from being quite perfect for me, but I might change my mind when I go back and rewatch it, but there are just a couple of little things that I would have liked to have seen a little different.
How about you, Carly?
I give it a total yay and 5 out of 5. I just kind of feel because I see stuff in a whole different lens that I see more of what the show really is, how it's done the most. And so I really feel they've done a phenomenal job each and every time.
Awesome. I can't wait to interview you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Get the inside scoop on everyone and everything. Yeah.
Don't get me in trouble here.
Oh, not here. Maybe later. All right, so let's head into the main points. The first main point, and we're going to segue all the way to the really heavy emotional stuff at the end of the episode. So I want to start with Santos and Whitaker, and then King, Javati, and Mohan. First thing I want to say here is, Mandy, you are completely right. Santos did turn out to be a good human, and I will eat a little bit of crow here for my opinions. I stand by a lot of what I said about her, but you were right. She had an armor, and underneath that armor is a genuinely amazing young woman. And I thought it was fun when the reporter was shouting at the cop that he was being held against his will. And when the cop looked over at Santos, still sassy Santos, she made her little, no, he's fine face. Thought that was great. And I like that Dr. Ellis is giving her nicknames. This one was New Girl. And I thought it was really great when Dr. Ellis was working with Santos and going through the possibilities, and Santos thinks that the guy might have harmed himself. And Ellis is like, yeah, that's a stretch. But Santos didn't give up. She didn't give up pushing her point with Ellis to let her stick with this guy. And she didn't give up when she was in there talking with Max. And she was such a kind, compassionate person, being raw and honest and telling her own story to relate with the patient. They could have stopped there, but they didn't. They kept going, and we'll get to her and Whitaker here in a minute. But I just so proud of her and thought just really grateful that we got to see that side of Santos.
Yeah, definitely. And how she has a hard shield about her. And that's one of the things I love about her, because she doesn't take crap from no one. And it's this thing in Hollywood, if you don't like the character, it means they're doing a good job portraying that character.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always stuck by that, and I love that. Because I've in the past in other shows and characters I don't like, and then I'll go, oh, so they're really doing a good job doing this. And that's definitely what Izzet does every single time.
Well, I love her. I've been her A1 for day one. I think that one of the things that's always bugged me about the criticism of her is that there are so many other characters on this show that display almost a sociopathic level of indifference to some of the things that to normal people outside the medical community might seem crazy, just very callous. But I think that's part of like the toughness that kind of a gallows humor. And not everyone is like that. So out of all of the newbies that were coming in, I've already like the order of residency and all that is already lost in my brain. But I know Santos has been at it a little bit longer than some of the others. She's not Whitaker, but I just think that she's always come across to me as not unkind or callous or mean in any way larger than anybody else. I genuinely think that she may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I think from the first episode, you could tell that she deeply cared about things if you really looked. And I never really understood why the nicknames bother people so much. I think maybe that's part of the Santos in me, because I tend to give nicknames to people that I care about. My mom said that she reminded her of the women in my family, and that's just kind of how we joke. But then again, I've been told that I can come across as kind of callous and mean in the past. So I'm not letting her off the hook about that. I'm just explaining why I'm genuinely not surprised that she turned out to be a really thoughtful, caring character. And I love her and Dr. Ellis together. I think I've said before, like certain characters remind me of us, but I genuinely think Ellis and Santos are so much like me and you. You're a little bit more emotionally intelligent than I am. So I can't think of times you've had to be like, you can't say that, Mandy. But it's not because you're a saint and didn't think it was hilarious. You just,
right.
You should know better than that. So I got a lot of us in this episode with those two characters. And I think she's like Santos needs an Ellis in her life. She needs somebody who can call her on her shit and tell her when she's coming across as an asshole, but still genuinely appreciates her wit and her sense of humor and all of that.
Yeah. There's another me and you moment later in this that I made a note that actually says me and Mandy. So I look forward to getting into that with you.
Me too.
Let's move on to the Santos and Whitaker part. But before we get into their interactions, once the big reveal happens, I want to talk just a couple of minutes about moments where Whitaker made me laugh out loud. Mrs. Chu goes missing, and Dana tells Whitaker that he's the new bloodhound because he was able to catch the rat. And he asks McKay, have you seen this patient? McKay's like, no. And he's like almost proud, like, well, Dana says I'm the bloodhound. And McKay's like, well, you did catch the rat. So that continuity I thought was cute. But then he finds Mrs. Chu, and she's smoking in the hallway or somewhere. He found her smoking, and Dr. King tells Mrs. Chu that tobacco isn't healthy, and Mrs. Chu says, I've outlived 3 of my ex-husbands, and Whitaker says they probably died from secondhand smoke. I just love his serious but kind of dry delivery on his jokes. That made me laugh so hard.
There were a lot of funny moments with him this episode. Little faces he was making at just certain times. It's just, he's funny. He kind of has like this big-eyed cartoon mouse look about him himself. So
He does. Mighty Mouse.
yeah, kind of Mighty Mouse. Yeah.
I
If
see
I
it.
was Santos, that might have been, instead of Huckleberry, that might have been my nickname for him.
It's funny how people don't know his accent. They're like, wait, he's from another country?
I
It's
know,
like,
he does
It
a good job.
surprised me.
He does a great job.
He really does.
All right, so I was confused for a second when Santos, after the shift was officially done and they were leaving, and Santos ran back to the computer to do something. I was like, what did she forget? What is she about to do? But then I realized it was for her to be able to clock Whitaker going up to the side stairs. And at first, I wanted to be hard on her for following him, like it's none of your business. But I'm glad that she did, because it led to such an interesting pairing that I would not have ever predicted with this show, that you would end up having Santos and Whitaker living together. And I hope it carries on into season 2. But she catches him. We find out that he's homeless. And I want to give a loyal listener, Maureen, credit, because she's been saying from the beginning that she believes Whitaker is an unhoused person. And Maureen, you are 100% right. I will give credit where credit is due.
Maureen, if you are not married to one of the writers, I am going to need you to immediately send me some lottery numbers, because that was the
Same.
pull of the season.
Yeah.
Same here. I need the money. So if you want to help, I'm all for it.
Yes, please. Help us all, Maureen.
She's clearly psychic. I kind of want a spin-off of Santos and Whitaker in the big city together as roomies. I still like these stories that I've spun in my head that Whitaker is gay, and that is why he is estranged from his family and living out here on his own in Pittsburgh and experiencing being unhoused. So I'm like, I want to see the two queer roommates living it up and being together. And so, but anyway, that's all conjecture. We don't know for sure. I'm just going by context clues. What Maureen pulled, that's amazing. Like, really, truly, you can go back and see the context clues, but I would have never seen it had she not pointed it out.
Yeah, she definitely planted some seeds, but it took me till I think like 7 episodes in before maybe even 9 episodes in before I really started to see, okay, maybe she's got a point here.
Yeah. When I was saying, like, I think we both, all 3 of us, have like worlds that we've built for these characters in our head, because they do such a good job of leaving some stuff ambiguous. I could see it after Maureen said it, but I thought it was going to end up being like my whole theory about Santos and Whitaker being gay roommates on the town, that we were just never going to know one way or the other. As soon as she walked into that room and saw him getting his stuff out, I clutched my pearls. I was like, Maureen, how did you know?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, good on you, Maureen.
Yeah, very. So this whole interaction was sweet and funny and sad, but not sad. I don't know. It just made me feel all sorts of things. And she realized immediately what was going on there. And I don't know exactly how you guys took their interactions, but I was so proud of her that I did not get the feeling at any point was she treating him as less than. She got some good jokes in, but she could have really been an asshole, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But she wasn't. She was so kind. And the way that she gets it out of him, he's like, oh, well, I sometimes stay here after a long shift. And she's like, this is your first day, which gets him to admit that he's between houses right now. And then she asks him if he has a car. And he says, well, I'm between cars right now. And then she just, without hesitation, is like, okay, I have an extra bedroom with a bath. You can have it if you want. And he's like, oh, thanks. But you could tell doesn't have the money. And she's like, well, are you handy with things? Can you clean and can you fix things? And I think that was her extending, I don't know if saying olive branch is the right word, but people, men especially, have a pride about them at accepting help. And I think she realized he wasn't going to be comfortable staying with her if he wasn't contributing some way to the scenario. And she gave him that way to contribute. But the favorite line was when she says, I know Krav Maga, and Whitaker says, I don't know who that is, but he sounds very protective of you. Whitaker, you
that was
silly
adorable.
boy. I loved that whole interaction. And, I mentioned they did such a good job of bringing these characters home, so to speak, at the end of the season. And this was great.
He's kind of the Rose Nyland of the two of them.
Oh my God, he is. I can picture it. Where's
And
he
I'm
from?
just picturing-
Oklahoma?
I think it is, no, it's Nebraska, I think.
Picture it. Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska.
2000 and whatever.
So I'm picturing like a running joke in their series of her boyfriend Krav Maga and how he can't wait to
I can't wait to meet him
Yeah.
over cheesecake. Or maybe, I don't know.
No, cheesecake was what they always were eating on Golden Girls.
I was trying to think of what a Pittsburgh
version of that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those big, a cheese steak, not a cheesecake. It would just be a big old Philly cheesesteak. Oh, look what we did there. Yeah. So I think that what you were pointing out about her giving him dignity there, I think that's part of her character that I've always picked up on and loved. I don't want to sound like I don't recognize why some people just don't dig some of her personality as laid out by the writers of the Pitt. I get that she's just not everybody's cup of tea, but like as somebody who gives nicknames to people, I always thought that was a sign of respect. I just don't think that she takes the piss out of people that she doesn't like. Like she even says later on, she only is an asshole to other assholes. So I think the fact that if you watch from the beginning, she was given these nicknames to other people, and I'm not going to defend some of the medical choices that she made because better people than me from the medical community have called her out. But I think that if you see from the beginning, when shit hit the fan, Santos was always a team player. Like when everything got crazy, she did not question that she was not in charge, that King was in charge. I never thought she was disrespectful, truly disrespectful to her colleagues, other than Langdon. And the argument can be made that she was not wrong about that. I think that she thinks in her brain, life is hard as shit. You have to have a shell, but for the right people, you let that shell down. I don't think it's comfortable for her. You could literally see Issa Briones just did such a great job. You could see in her face that she was like, oh God, I'm going to have to ask this kid to live with me, because she does feel compassion and she feels responsibility and she feels caring for other people. And so like, even though it wasn't necessarily what she wanted, she let those walls down to let him in. And I think that you're right. She is so compassionate that she realized she would not like taking charity from someone. So she had to be careful to make sure that she was letting him know that she was giving him a hand up, not a handout.
Yeah. Good. That's a good way to put that.
But I love them. I'd like to see 7 more episodes of them just hanging out in their apartment.
I think, much like last week when we talked about them reaching out to us to write the Myrna Earl storyline for next season.
Girl.
I think, Carly, you've got an in. I think you need to reach out to these guys and let them know you've got some brilliant people here with some great ideas. And maybe season 3 could be King, her sister, Santos, and Whitaker, and Javati, Mateo.
They all get a house together?
They all get this place together, and it's just them, all their shenanigans.
Well, we call it the interns.
Like a Big Brother episode.
Yeah.
All of them in one room.
For whatever reason, I'm picturing that Saturday Night Live skit, The Californians.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Like instead of it being hyper realistic, like this spinoff is just them living in a house that none of them can afford on the beach somewhere. It's very melodramatic. 90210. No, what was not 90210? What was the one about the apartment complex that came on after?
Melrose Place. Ooh. See? Writers of the Pit.
We got ideas.
We are here for you. You just give us a call.
The Pitt Rose Place.
The Pit
doesn't-
Rose Place.
Doesn't have the same ring. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh, but I just really think that you guys should think about the fact that Pitt is right there in your name. I know there's reasons. I didn't bother to Google why. I'm sure Pitt was a lovely man, but.
All right. So anybody got anything else to add on Santos and Whitaker before we move on to my favorite human being in the show?
Nope.
All right. So let's talk about Dr. King, my rock star. Taylor Dearden, if you're listening, I I love your work. You are amazing, and I genuinely hope that you will come on this show one day or this podcast and talk to us about your time on the show because you're amazing. I really liked the way she kept her emotions in check and the parallel with how Robbie was handling things. Now, I give Robbie grace knowing that he's had lots and lots of more years of trauma that have built up inside than King does. But, Robbie, and we'll talk more about that specific action later, but what he does with the dad to try to guilt him into the spinal tap. And then the way she handles it, she was very professional. She was honest with the parents, but again, very professional. And I loved after the father's like, okay, do it. The way she smiled afterwards and the way she did not flinch when the mom busted in the room. Super pissed off, and don't even get me started on that mom.
I love that smirk that she had when the mom told her to take the spinal tap out, which she was already almost in the process of because she was right there at the end, but she absolutely did not get in a hurry to finish up. And she kind of was like, yeah, doing it right now. And, she had that little, haha, I'm pulling one over grin, which I think is the closest that King could probably get to lying flat out. And it was a great choice by Taylor Dearden. I don't know her, so I don't know that she would appreciate this joke, but I hope she would. I have seen several people online make the comment, Taylor Dearden is nepotism done right, because her father, I gotta think if you're the child of an extremely famous person, particularly somebody who was in your industry, it probably gets exhausting to constantly have to talk about that person. But in this situation, I hope that she is very proud of her father. Bryan Cranston, he's maybe top 2 or 3 character actors that we have working, in my opinion, in this country today. Like we talked with Amar Martinez a couple of weeks ago about how, and I remember we had the same talk with Justin, and I think Alex too, like we had these talks about how they all have training in comedy and in doing very serious roles. They do those well. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Like I can think of a handful of people, John C. Reilly, Meryl Streep. She does comedy really, really well for somebody who is Glenn Close can do both and be phenomenal at them. So he's in a really, really small group of people. And I think in this situation, you can have kids that are maybe going to get a hand in the door because, it's like with my life, if my son was going into my industry and I could maybe get him an introduction to somebody, that's great. You have to be able to bring it. And she's got it in every single episode with her limited amount of time. And honestly, if you probably look at like dialogue, I don't think she has as much dialogue as a lot of the other characters because she doesn't need it, because she can carry a scene with just a look, with a quirk. She just embodies her character. And I give that to her. I was, the joke about nepotism done right. I agree that she has a phenomenal father that she is coming from, but that's all her.
Yeah.
I hope that she pats herself all the way on the back for what she's done with this character. She created a character in King, a character that is so kind and beloved. Whatever, controversies we might have about other characters, I have not seen one single discourse anywhere online from anybody saying anything other than Dr. King is the heart of this show.
So continuing on with Dr. King, you're talking about a Whitaker and Santos spinoff. I want a Mel and her sister spinoff. That was the most precious moment of the entire season, was her picking up Becca. And I really spotlighted caretakers who have full-time jobs and have to work, and then they basically go on to care for another person. And Mel is just the way her face lit up when she saw Becca and their little routines that they have of it's Friday night, we go out to eat. And I just thought it was so cute for anyone that has children or has children in their lives or knows me and my obsession with watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation over and over again. There's that face Mel makes, and her absolutely unwillingness to want to watch Elf again was just adorable. And I love those two. And I think I'm so glad we got to meet Becca. It's just a beautiful moment. I'm glad they gave it to us.
That little walking off into the sunset together was very sweet.
It was.
I thought it was so funny how she was working real hard to not watch Elf again. That did crack me up.
Maybe we could watch something else.
I think my favorite part, though, was we can have spaghetti and take a pizza home. We could do both of those things. And I was like, yeah, right on. You can. You're adults. Nobody's telling you can't do that. The King sisters can do that if they want to.
Oh, that was great.
I love Taylor. I think she's so cool, and I'm so looking forward to seeing what else she does beyond the Pitt and Atlas. She's really, truly amazing.
Yeah. I think she's got nowhere but up to go.
Same.
All of them do.
It's funny, when we were talking just a minute ago, I just found this People article, and it's a People opinion article that says, let's be real, you started watching The Pitt for Dr. Robbie and stayed for Melissa King.
Yes.
Don't tell me that our phones aren't listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cute because I was like, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Dr. Robbie's my second favorite, but she is by far my first.
I've seen that same sentiment over and over and over with people saying that she was the heart of the show. And I do not disagree.
It's funny because her dad and Noah are good friends. So it was just funny how I found out she was going to be on the show.
Could you imagine dinner with Bryan Cranston and Noah Wiley?
Yes.
I'm going to take a minute to myself.
I would need to leave the room every 2 minutes.
There's not many people that I would like, that I really think too much about meeting as far as famous people, but Bryan Cranston is one I would love to. He just seems like he is the kind of person who would be genuinely interested in every person that he meets, or at least make you feel that way.
Yeah.
And he also just seems very self-effacing and very amusing. I just think the world of him as an actor and as a person, from what I can tell. But jokes aside about nepotism, I don't know whether or not she got an audition because they were friends or if that was just completely had nothing to do with it. But she definitely was the absolute perfect person for that role, and she killed it.
100%.
She really has, and that's something else too. Like I'll get messages, people saying, did you know that Taylor's dad is dun-dun-dun-dun? And yes, and it is cool. I think it's awesome. But I just go, well, they're two different people, they're two different people in the business and stuff. And, not to compare both of them just because they're related.
Yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to make clear there, is that I don't have any idea how she ended up being able to audition for this role. I'm just so grateful that she did and that they were smart enough to hire her. And even though I think her father is one of the greatest actors that we have out there right now, I think she's going to be as great, if not greater. I just can't imagine how proud of her he is.
I agree. All right, so Javati was so tired, she couldn't even get off the gurney in the elevator, but boy, did she perk right up when Mateo asked her to come for a drink. I just thought that was adorable.
And sorry, Jalen, I have to say this, but you remind me of Luke Perry in this whole season.
Who did?
Mateo?
Yeah. Like a young Luke Perry.
Yeah,
sorry, Jalen.
Don't be sorry. Luke Perry is amazing.
He is.
He was amazing.
And a really good compliment, too. Luke Perry was amazing.
I give him more Brandon vibes.
That's
Jason
what I was about to
Priestley
say.
vibes.
I think he looks more like Jason Priestley.
I can totally see that, too.
Yeah. I'm going to see that from now on. I'm going to see him as little Brandon Walsh.
He kind of has that wholesome, clean scrubbed look about him.
Yeah.
And with better hair.
And an amazing, that smile.
He is her Idaho.
Yeah, Utah.
He is her Utah. I want to say one thing, though, about those two together, and something that I have enjoyed subplot-wise is how he started out. You could tell that the first few episodes, he just thought of her as kind of, oh, you're adorable. Like he could tell she had a crush on him. She wasn't subtle about it at all. But over the last few episodes, since he saw her, like you saw a man fall in love when he saw her come through in the middle of that crisis with the shooter. That episode where she stood up to her mom and took over that situation and saved that guy's life. You saw Mateo, his whole world change as far as realizing I'm not like, oh, she's cute anymore. Now it's like, dang, I'm into her. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining this.
Does she flip the script?
Yeah, it went from like, oh, yes, I am adorable. I could tell you have a crush on me. Isn't that cute? To I should be flattered.
There's something strong and amazing in this young woman, and I dig it. I'm here for it. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Because as handsome as he is, he probably gets hit on all the time, but that didn't really seem to matter, right? I mean, he was polite about it, but kept that distance. And I think that this asking her to come over there, he's into her. I definitely think.
Yeah, he jumped off that counter to get her attention as soon as Robbie was done talking.
Yeah, how the tables have turned. I think somebody else is visiting Utah now. The Utah's on the other foot.
Yeah.
So anyway, just as somebody who loves to see powerful women get recognized anywhere that you can in this world, I want to applaud that choice by the writers. They made that little turn in the dynamics of their relationship, and that Javati got her moment of somebody giving her the respect that she should have, and that she is a genius and she is a badass. I don't know if she believes it about herself, but
she certainly
does. Yeah.
All of them grew leaps and bounds in this shift. Speaking of leaps and bounds and thinking they can run leaps and bounds, we have Mohan, who at first I was like, did somebody accidentally give her ecstasy or something? The way she was like absolutely tweaking. And I'm glad that first McKay noticed it. And I loved McKay's face when she realized that she was on this crazy adrenaline high. But I also appreciate Dr. Ellis when Mohan's like, okay, I can do it with the lumbar stick. And she's like, no, you're going to go home. And basically forcing Mohan to stop and face the realities of the day. But it was really sad. It was very heartbreaking to watch her crying in the bathroom. And kudos to the directors for the camera work in this, where they don't shove it in your face, but you get the glimpse of the blood on the soap dispenser, the blood on the paper towel dispenser, on the trash can, the bloody footprints that were going out of the door, just to kind of hammer home the severity of everything that happened with that day, that there is still a lot that's left to be cleaned up, not just from a cleanliness in the hospital standpoint, but emotionally as well. I just thought that was a well done scene, and I liked watching Mohan go through that, because I'm certain I've never done anything like that in my life, but I'm certain there are moments like that when you are on this high. Like Mandy, you said last week when we're waiting tables and we come down off that high and we're like, oh, okay, that happened. Again, we recognize it's not the same from an intensity standpoint, but you are left to just sit there and kind of face the emotions of everything that happened that day. And I think Samir did a phenomenal job of acting that whole thing out.
Yeah, I don't know if they did that all in one day, but that must have been if they did, that must have been a tough day. She went through the gamut there. Yeah. It was hard to watch. I'm glad they did it, and I thought it was beautifully told. It was hard to watch somebody as sweet and kind as her go through that emotional. You could just see it from a mile away. Every character there was like, oh, she's about to crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. It did remind me to a small degree of that post-shift adrenaline rush where, that's part of how I think a lot of old servers, we get into these sleep disorder issues because, when you work at night and then you get off, especially when you're in a high stress environment working at night, and especially one where in that small way we can relate, not that it's life or death, but just it's a very short period of high intensity. And then you're left with all of this adrenaline. So, you say you work until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night and your restaurant closes. I don't know about you, Becky, but I was never going to bed before 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
No, I still to this day, and people make fun of me because if we're doing something at night, I want to be home by 7, 8 o'clock, because it's going to take me a minimum of 2 hours for my brain to settle down before I can go to sleep.
Any change in my routine, I'm the same way. Yeah.
People are like, well, she's old. I'm like, well, I am old, but also I can't go home and go straight to sleep like you can. So if I've got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 10 o'clock means I'm not getting to bed till at least midnight. And then it's going to take me a long time to fall asleep because I have an anxiety riddled brain that will not shut up. So, it was a very well done perception of or viewpoint of what it's like to come down from all of that.
And it was her first time going through anything like that, too.
Yeah.
Like, McKay, I think, has been around the block a little bit more, and she was a little bit better able, to handle it, which I think is part of why she saw what was coming from a mile away with Mohan. So who knows, a couple of seasons down the road, Mohan may not be this worked up from situations like that, but maybe she will. She's a very compassionate person.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that I've taken away from this a lot this season is just how I've never really considered how many little micro traumas doctors go through every single day, and having to cut your emotions off so often, just cut them off, but not too much. You want to be compassionate, but you don't want to be so compassionate that people don't trust you because you have to be in charge. And watching mostly Robbie, but all of them go through that this season is like really giving me a newfound respect for the fact that they're all not just batshit crazy. That's so hard as a human animal to access your emotions, but not drown in the sorrow of losing a little girl and a teenage boy and having a shooting, all in one day. I admire them. This show has given me a much stronger appreciation for what doctors go through.
Amen. All right. Well, if y'all are ready to move on to the next main point, are y'all good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move on to Dana and Langdon, and then Dana and Robbie. We start with Dana in the break room with Langdon. And I wanted to shake Langdon for the way he steamrolled Dana, who is obviously, if you know her, and all of these people know her, she's had a really bad day too. And instead of really talking to her, he immediately goes into his problem and how he needs her to have his back. And it's not until she says, I don't even know if I'm coming back, that he switches gears, but it's still, we need you.
Still about him.
Yeah. And it just, it really, really grated my nerves when that whole thing happened. But I loved how she flipped the script on him. And it was refreshing for the first time to hear him say, I'm scared, I fucked up, and finally owning up to the fact that he's got a problem. Catherine Lanasa, man, she was brilliant this entire season, but she brought it home this episode. She looked at him and said, you're a smart kid. Trust Robbie. He'll do what's best for you. And unfortunately, Langdon didn't really like the plan that Robbie gave him, which we'll get to here in just a minute. But, what did y'all think about that? Am I way off base?
No, I was so mad at Langdon this whole episode. I was every credit point that he had earned back for me, that benefit of the doubt that I was giving him during the emergency situation, went out the window in that scene. I really want to go into a little bit of a deep dive about Catherine Lanasa and Nurse Dana in this episode.
I saw you added a point, and I'm glad that you did, because I do have a note here where she admitted to Langdon that she wasn't sure if she was coming back. And I do have some news on that about Dana's last shift. So let's go ahead and wrap up Dana.
I just want to make sure we give all the flowers we can to Catherine Lanasa. She did such a phenomenal job, much like what I was talking about earlier with my thoughts about King and Taylor Dearden and how effectively she worked with very little dialogue. I think it's the same with Nurse Dana. So much of her character is not in the dialogue. It's in the choices that she makes, in the background, or when the character's not even the focal point necessarily of the scene. Watching her, I'm curious to know what your news is about that, because I genuinely felt like watching her take those pictures down, watching her look around that ER, having what basically sounded like her final pep talk with Langdon.
Mm-hmm. And Robbie.
Yeah. I felt like she was not coming back. Dana knew her mind, and that she was not coming back to that ER. in my mind, she had the look of a woman who was completely done. And she was choosing herself and her own mental health. She saw where this was taking these people that she has had these great relationships with and she loves and admired. And she's like, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. I have served my time.
I got the exact same thing that you did. I was convinced this was unfortunately, going to be the last that we see of Dana, especially after she gives Robbie that pep talk that he did the best he could with Adamson and that little girl. And he says, I'll see you Monday. And she just gives him a look. I was like, okay, she's done. However, Sam, before we went on, sent me an article where they spill some beans on who's coming back for season 2, and Dana will be back.
Okay, I didn't know that. But one of the thoughts I had was Catherine Lanasa is so awesome. It would be a real loss to the show and not have that character at all anymore. But what if she's a patient this time?
It's possible, but the way Wiley or Wells or one of the producers in the conversation said that, because basically it's going to be like 10 months since
4th of July weekend.
And this a lot happens in that time where she'll have time to recover and process everything, and that they made it sound like she was coming back as a charge nurse.
Well, I trust them. And so I think whatever choice they make, they're great writers. And I think it'll be awesome. That almost disappoints me a little bit, just initial reaction though, because hell yeah, she deserves to go home and spend time with that grandbaby and live some life that's not in, I mean, that part where she talked about how she was born in that hospital. I don't know, maybe I'm projecting because I'm getting closer to that point in my life, but I just think I almost would be disappointed for her that if she did come back, because I feel like from the way that she determined why she wanted to leave, I was like, hell yeah, Nurse Dana, go sit on a beach somewhere. So maybe she'll do that for a while and then.
That's the impression I got. It sounds to me like all of these characters are going to get the self-care that they need.
I hope so.
And will come back not perfect, but will come back better. And she is one of those people. So I think Dana's about to get a well-deserved, long-ass, lovely vacation. Either way, I would miss Kathleen Lanasa so much if she made the choice, or if the show made the choice not to bring her back. And I think it would have been a bold move for this bold show to not bring back one of its all-time favorite characters. But I also am grateful that we will get more, because I think there's more of her story to be told. So, Carly, what do you think about all that? You got any inside scoop?
No, not really. I just, I like a lot of other people on the show. I have a lot of respect for Catherine, and I think she's truly amazing. I know people get annoyed when I do that, but I just really don't have any bad or negative things to say about any of them from the character.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
Yeah, she's great. And I agree with you, Becky. It would have been a lesser show. And I trust them to tell the story correctly.
Yeah.
Whatever they do, I'm sure it will be good. It's just, that's how well she did her job, that she just has you caring for her on a personal level. Right. I know this is a fictional character, but I'm like, okay, let her go home. Let her go and live some of her life out of that fucking hospital. Golly, what do you want, blood?
And I think that's a smart move too, for them to make the choice to do a time jump, because it's going to allow for whatever mindset these people come back in. It's going to make it a more believable scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, Carly, you got anything to add about Dana and Langdon before we move into that absolutely insane argument that happened outside?
No, I'm more looking to talk about that more than anything.
Okay. All right, well, let's segue into it then. So, Langdon, God bless America. I stand by what I said when he walked back into that ER, that the man is selfish. I don't think it's a necessarily vindictive selfishness, if that even makes any sense, but he only thinks about himself. I can't be anything but a doctor. I. The whole conversation with Dana was all about me, me, me. And he should have really taken the smart choice and left when Robbie told him to leave. And he just read the room. This was not the right time to go and talk to Robbie after all of that trauma just happened. And I have been honest about my dealings with a sibling who was an addict. And it almost made me cry when Langdon was having that conversation with Dana and then when he was having that argument with Robbie. And if y'all let me get through this part, I'll zip it and y'all can finish the conversation because this really hits home to me. But when he was talking with both Dana and Robbie, he did what most addicts do when being confronted with the reality of the problem and what needs to be done to correct it. First, he made excuses for the addiction and why he kept it to himself. And I thought it was really great that Robbie reminded him that he could have come to him. And if he'd have done that in the first place, this wouldn't be the issue that it is now. And two, he deflects onto Robbie, basically telling Robbie, you're just as screwed up as I am. And he's not wrong, but that is accepting responsibility for your situation and the fact that you are not doing well in that situation. It was just a big, big thing. And then Langdon is telling him, I can't not be a doctor. Well, Robbie's like, okay, you got 30-day inpatient treatment program, 50 to 60 random urine tests a year, mandatory NA meetings 3 to 4 times a week for the first 3 years. And then it's a total of a 5-year program. And Langdon, he can't see that someone is offering him a way out, a way out that doesn't involve going to jail, because he could go to jail. And then Robbie says something, and I think Robbie was talking to himself as much as he was talking to Langdon, but he says, this job will fuck you up if you let it. And Langdon says, I wasn't the one talking to cartoon animals and peds. So he just threw it again. Instead of accepting that he has a problem, owning up that he has a problem, and accepting the help that's being offered, he flips the script and deflects back onto Robbie. And that Robbie walking away screaming, fuck you, was just like, it's two people fighting, but neither one of them wanting to accept the fact that they need help. That was powerful. And if that doesn't earn Noah Wiley an Emmy, I will riot. Okay, discuss. Sorry, I just had to get that out.
Go ahead, Mandy.
Well, I think that I'm going to push back a little bit. Yes, I think at the root of both of their problems is that they are being just bombarded with the stress of this job and they're handling it differently. I want to give Robbie a little more grace, though, because one of the things that infuriated me is, and I got to be careful the way I say this, because what I don't want to sound like I'm saying is that addiction is flat out just a choice. I understand, because like you, I have a sibling that I lost predominantly to addiction. I'm exquisitely aware of the fact that sometimes it is not nearly as much of a choice as the addict wants to believe that it is. And that's part of the problem. However, to my mind, Robbie working himself to the point of having an involuntary emotional breakdown. I don't know that they can ever be voluntary. Robbie is literally killing himself, doing everything he can to do it the right way. Langdon did not do that. So the fact that he wanted to throw this man's emotional turmoil in his face and compare it to his addiction, that pissed me off. It's not that addiction is a choice, but you had to actively go out and seek the medication. You know what I mean? Like, Robbie didn't ask for this trauma to be visited on him. He's just doing his best to stay afloat. So it just was extra shitty and weaselly for him to throw an emotional breakdown in his face. And Robbie's better than I am, because my reaction probably would have been something like, at least I didn't develop an addiction to cope with all of this.
You're right. And when I said Langdon's not wrong, because Robbie is just as screwed up.
He needs help too.
You're right. It's not the same. And my apologies for that. You're right.
No, I don't want you to hear that, because I don't necessarily think you're wrong, that at the root cause of, when I said I was pushing back, I just meant that I wanted to make the distinction that something that pissed me off was that even in this scenario, much of what Robbie is going through is involuntary. And while addiction is not 100% voluntary the behavior behind the addiction is. And so it was extra weaselly for him to throw that in his face. I just wanted to make that point that they're not exactly the same situation.
You're right. That's completely fair.
But also, speaking of our psychic listeners, what about Sam calling this? Like, it didn't play out exactly the way that I think she was hoping. And I feel like when she hears this, she's going to be going, yes.
Oh, she already texted. And we got a voicemail from her. I'll be playing later.
Yeah. But I think that she, much like Maureen, she picked up on the fact that Robbie is operating far less voluntarily than he thinks he is, as far as he is actively in the throes of a complete emotional crisis. And he's not seeing that he is a danger as well.
What do you got, Carly?
So when it came to that and stuff, I could see the frustration in Robbie's face when they did that. And I know, like, Lincoln's going to have a hard time accepting that he had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And much I like Patrick, I didn't really care for that scene just because of the interaction and throwing it into his face, the trauma. Because I've seen people do that to each other. And it's really kind of bizarre how people can turn that way. But I know at the same time that Lincoln just wanted to prove his point of trying to do better or something like that.
Yeah, I think he was. We've talked earlier about Issa Briones and how when an actor is playing a complex character, one of the ways you know that they are good is that they can make you feel things. One of the things that, as much as it made me mad, it's actually spot on for an addict to say just the most heinous shit to you.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My brother said some of the most painful things I've ever heard to myself and my parents. It just...
Especially if you're calling them out on their shit.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism because It is a lot easier to push your deal onto somebody else and bring them down than to focus on the fact that you have a problem. It is easier to do that.
Yeah. And I think something about addiction especially can turn off the part of your brain that says that you are being very cruel sometimes to people that you love. It got to the point with my sister that I actually learned some of my favorite swears from things that she was screaming at me. One of my favorite cusses that anyone has ever said was my sister yelling it to me through the phone. And I won't say it right now because even though we're a rated R podcast, y'all ain't ready for that. So I'll tell you what it is once we finish recording. And I knew that in her own way, she loved me. And I've heard the things that have been said to you and your mother too, Becky. So yeah, I thought it was a spot of good writing for sure.
No, yeah, absolutely. And brilliant acting on both of their parts. I tip my hat to Patrick and Noah. I felt a lot during that scene. And Robbie's final shout of F you was just, whoo, that was intense.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, for sure.
And it kind of felt like what a release for him to say that. And I love that for no one to do that.
Yeah, that it was cathartic. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought back to when he confronted him about his stealing the pain meds. And I had read that Noah had said that he thought that scene was going to end up being more of a physical fight. This scene harkened back to that. Like there is just a suppressed rage underneath all of it that could have broken out into physical violence at any point. But Robbie still, with everything else going on, kept it together enough to just walk away from the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant continuity in the writing there. Even if all Langdon got was a fuck you instead of a punch to the face, which he absolutely deserved.
When Robbie walks away and Langdon is stuck there and he's going to have to go home now and he's going to have to sit with all of that. Had Robbie punched him, he would have found a way to justify Langdon justify his feelings towards Robbie. Now he's got nothing to do but go and sit in the fact that
Robbie still had more control than him. Yeah.
I've screwed up. I've really screwed up. So yeah. I look forward to all of that coming full circle next year.
I hope that what we see from Langdon 10 months down the road, if he's coming back, is I want to see him break a little bit. There were a couple of moments where you could tell that he really had a kinship with Dr. King and he really admired her and her bedside manner, but you never really saw him humbled at all this season. So I would like to see him stop and have to really take stock of the fact that the only reason he's not falling apart like Robbie is because he's numbing himself.
Yeah. I'd like to see the path where he accepts, acknowledges, and works on fixing all of that. I would like to see how that plays out, but given the time jump, I'm not quite sure how that will all be done.
I'm hoping if he's been in recovery in 10 months, from something that I have noticed from friends of mine who have gone through 12-step programs, you can expect to see a depressed Langdon in 10 months. You can expect to see a Langdon that is a lot closer to a Robbie in this episode, because now he has to deal with all of the shitty things inside that he has been suppressing by self-medicating.
Yeah.
You know, you can still be proud of who you are and know that you're a badass doctor without acting like the world revolves around you. And I think part of that selfishness comes from addiction. He may not be that person when he's not an addict. You know what I mean? Like the people that I have seen that go through the 12 and they really get through it, the process can be hard because you're really trying to mask deep-seated problems. We always hear that phrase thrown around, self-medicating, but that's literally what you're doing. You're medicating because something inside is sick.
Yeah.
And you are just trying to suppress that because it can be scary. And some of the cockiest people in the world, they're really just not dealing with reality. And so who knows how much of his cockiness comes from his addiction?
Yeah.
He has to let go of his crutch and really accept that there's some scary, fucked up things that happen, especially if you're in his line of work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Please make 9 months go by fast. Carly, you got anything else to add about that before we move into our final main point?
No.
So let's move into our final main point, which is Dr. Robbie and Dr. Abbott.
Two of my favorite people.
Yeah. So we start with Robbie, and I kind of want to go through the stages of his breakdown, and then we'll talk about Jake and then the team speech that he gives, which is our opening clip for this podcast. First things first, and I think everyone will agree, Robbie never should have taken that father to the makeshift morgue. I get his urgency to help that kid, but this goes along with what Sam was talking about last week. He's not in a place where he's making sound decisions, and this was a major sign of that. And I thought Abbott's reaction when Robbie announced that he did that was honest, but very funny. And when the dad walks out of the room and he calls him an asshole, and he says, no, Wiley, or Dr. Robbie says, yeah, I'm an asshole who's trying to save your son's life. You could just start to see the breaks happening again. And I thought he seemed to be doing a good job of keeping it together with Abbott when they were trying to save Hector early on. But he really started to unravel once King told him the parents wanted to move the measles kid. And then I think he finally just flat out snapped, obviously, when Langdon approached him. And then it, kind of starts to come back together, and Abbott's checking in on him, are you okay? And Robbie's like, why do you keep asking me that? And then Abbott starts listing the reasons why he's asking. And then we see Robbie start to lose focus when they're working on Hector, and he can't focus on what they're saying to him. And then he starts to get paranoid when he asks Dana if she's heard anything about him. And then he gives that amazing speech to the team. And I just a side note on the brilliant, again, directing, the way the camera panned around to show every person from that shift and the look of physical and mental exhaustion on their face. And I was proud of Robbie for giving them kudos, letting them know that it's okay to cry. Tears are just grief leaving the body. And how ironic, though, that he gives them blessing to process their feelings, but he doesn't allow himself to do the same. And then Jake, I gave Jake the benefit of the doubt last week, but I don't think what he said to Robbie this week was fair, especially after Langdon talked to him. I get that he's still raw, but I don't think that was cool. But I think it was very kind of Robbie to tell Jake that it's okay to blame me. Just please don't blame yourself. And I think Jake's reaction was awful. And that
I was mad at his mom. I was more mad
she
at the
said
mom.
nothing.
Yeah, just sat there patting his arm. Oh, I wasn't even mad at Jake. It was shitty, but we have a lot of young men in our lives. We know sometimes they say shit that they don't really mean. And how the hell do you process that your girlfriend just got shot at the music festival that you took her to earlier? But I was pissed that the mom just sat there and didn't say, this man has just been through hell. He did everything he could. Stop being an asshole.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And I agree with you completely. Way to go, Mom. I see Robbie left you.
Yeah.
That was awful.
I agree.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. I don't know that was Robbie's fault, lady.
Well, then that happens, and that didn't feel good. And then he has to go tell Leah's parents that she's gone. So I feel like Robbie is a whack-a-mole game. You know what whack-a-mole I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's Robbie. And
the hits just keep coming.
They were all getting the hits. They scored high that day. And so we see him in the throes of another breakdown. And then we come full circle to the start of the shift. But this time it's Robbie on the roof and Abbott talks him down. So before we get to that conversation, I do want to play a clip. But before we play that clip, do y'all have any thoughts or anything to add on that entire soliloquy I just read?
Before you play the clip, I think is probably the best place for me to give my opinion about the whole roof scene. I loved the dialogue. I love the clip that you're about to play. I loved that interaction. But I'm going to harken back to my feeling about the first episode when he was talking Abbott down in a show that has done a very good job of showing a fairly realistic version of what it's like to work in a really busy, high pressure, high stakes emergency room. Them standing literally on the edge of the hospital, I feel like that is an unnecessarily melodramatic device. I think both of those scenes would have been better and more subtle if instead of them being on the other side of the fence, one on one side, one on the other, that they had both been close to the edge, but not standing on the other side of it. I'm still not down with that choice. It just seems a little bit melodramatic for them to literally be talking each other off of the ledge at the end of both of their shifts.
I get what you're saying. You and I both were in complete agreement in the first episode. And I think it was a bit for the dramatic side. But this time, I don't know what it was. I guess, when Abbott was up there, we didn't see the day Abbott had.
And that makes sense. Yeah.
But this time we saw the day Robbie had. So it made sense to me. Not that I think Robbie was going to jump. I do think it added to the intensity of the day for that scene to play out the way it did this time around. So I get what you're saying. I could see where you're coming from. I definitely saw it in episode 1, but for some reason it just hit differently with me this time.
Yeah, I think it is because we just saw how emotionally grueling that it is for these doctors. I guess it just to me, the fact that they might have to be there for each other in the way that they were their relationship, the way that they are there for each other, the way that they get each other is one of the high points of an amazing season. We didn't know about Abbott, but I will say this about Abbott too. Abbott seems like he's a little bit more of a hothead than Robbie is. It's not that Robbie might be suicidal. It's that I don't think Robbie would jump off of the hospital roof. In my head, I feel like it would have worked better had Abbott had come up and seen Robbie and maybe seen him on this side, but definitely contemplating what if I could just end it all. And they could have still had that same conversation of, I could see my man suffering. I know what might be going through his head. I feel like they could have still done that without him literally being on the other side.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they didn't call me and ask me to be on the writing staff. And
they will. It's coming.
Thank you. That is a very minor quibble because what they did that you're about to get into with the rest of that scene was phenomenal.
Carly, you got anything to add before I play the clip?
So kind of like a fun fact about that is when they went to go shoot the interior for the shows, and they spent the morning on the Pittsburgh hospital roof to Robbie and Ebot, and then they had to wait until the nighttime to do the opposite. So it was the same day, but two different type of situation that was going on.
Wow.
They shot those scenes in the same day?
Mm-hmm. They had to wait till the evening time to do the Ebot and Robbie.
That's very cool. I did not know that.
But, like, I really loved it, and I really saw the team in them and how they were trying to help each other, and how Robbie kept saying, "Shut up, don't talk anymore." And he just kept on going, like, I get it.
Which is where I wrote Me and Mandy.
I was about to say that. That's another place that's very much like our relationship.
This is very much Me and Mandy, which Carly got to witness a little bit ago.
Yes.
No, I have plenty of those with other people, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Becky and I are both super passionate people in general, and we have strong emotions. And there are times that we have to work through some challenging shit together. And honestly, that's the only the reason I can do this podcast with her is because even when it gets shitty like that, we stop and we have the hard conversations. And because of the respect and love we have for each other, we can say things to each other that we would not hear from other people.
Yeah.
I love that about us.
I love you.
And I think we could have gone through so much, especially the last 3 years. I'm just like so numbed. I'm just like going, keep focused, just whatever,
So you're the Robbie in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Carly's our little Robina.
Unfortunately, if I keep telling Noah, stop making me cry. Like, I get it. Stop it.
FYI, emotional suppression has not worked out well for your boy. So
We're going. Yeah, let's talk, Carly.
When I saw the preview on the episode, I thought we were done with the crying stuff. Like, like what's going on here?
All right. Well, if y'all are ready,
Play that clip.
all right, here we go.
Nice speech down there. Wish I had given it.
No, you don't.
No, fuck no. But glad somebody did. Yeah. I think I finally understand why I keep coming back now. It's in our DNA. It's what we do. We can't help it. We're the bees that protect the hive.
Maybe you, not me.
What are you talking about?
No damn well what I'm talking about. I broke.
You didn't break. You didn't break.
I shut down. The moment everybody needed me the most, I wasn't there. Couldn't do it. I choked.
For what? For 40 seconds? 3 minutes? 10 minutes? So fucking what? We all have that. That is what happens when you're in a war and nothing makes sense. Well, we survived as a species because we learned how to cooperate and communicate. So when we're in the middle of killing each other, it defies the very logic of our existence. Your brain starts to short circuit. All you can do is focus on the medicine. The medicine's the only thing that saves the patient and your sanity.
I'm gonna need a drink if you keep talking.
You get what I'm saying, right? You rocked that shit down there tonight. Yeah? You rocked that shit down there tonight. We all did. Now that is a compliment. Accept the damn compliment for once.
What if we just didn't talk for a minute?
I'm just trying to help.
I know.
I appreciate you.
Still talking.
Sorry. Get that drink now?
Yeah.
So well written, so well executed, just absolutely
Thank
beautiful.
you, John Wells, for writing that.
Yes.
I just think that when he said that we are the bees that try to protect the hive and when we're in the middle of killing each other was brilliant writing, because I think that encapsulates what is the most frustrating thing for a lot of medical professionals right now, especially after going through COVID. They've literally put their lives on the line to save people who sometimes are actively fighting them from being able to do that very thing, even sometimes saving their kids. God, that's just one of those emotional tolls that I was talking about. That's just one more thing that doctors have to deal with, is that they're literally killing themselves to be there to protect people. And part of that means that you have to confront the fact that it can probably feel very overwhelming, the amount of people that are actively trying to kill other members of the hive, which I'm not as saying as eloquently, but that's just another trauma that they have to deal with. And I think that soliloquy just really summed it up beautifully. This is some very good writing.
Yeah, very. And I loved that they get through the doors and they're walking out of the hospital. I love that Abbott just casually mentioned to Robbie about his therapist. And, he offers Robbie the number, and Robbie looks at him and says, "Does it work?" And Abbott says, "I haven't jumped off the roof, have I?" So that was the first moment, the first sign that I believe we are going to finally see Robbie getting himself some help. And I am grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we head over to the park, and like Carly pointed out, that I didn't know the roof scenes were actually shot at the hospital, but that the scene in the park was shot in Pittsburgh, and that is I think it's Allegheny Hospital. That is a real hospital in the background. I loved that whole scene. So before we move into the park, if y'all have anything else you want to add about Roof Talk?
No.
All right, so we get a big reveal in this episode with Abbott and him having a prosthetic leg. I love how it was just a thing. We talk about how this show makes a lot of things that makes them not after school specials. It just is. Abbott has a prosthetic leg. That's just a part of him. That's who he is. But it was a great way to reveal it. But again, done in a way that
didn't beat you over the head.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's part of what gets me about that whole rooftop thing, is that to me, one of the things that this show is the most powerful at doing is portraying reality in a way that does not feel forced, but they also, just by subtle choices that they make, draw attention to things that are crucial parts of that person's character, things that are often non-dialogue. I feel like my psychic credentials need to be recognized for calling it that he was ex-military.
Yeah.
And I love how they just casually throw those things in there since he's come back to the hospital these last few episodes. About Princess getting up and giving him that wipe to clean. That was so sweet.
That was. And then Donnie starts the conversation asking, if they'd ever gone through something like that before. And Robbie glances over at Abbott's prosthetic sitting next to him and basically acknowledging, yeah, we've seen some things.
Yeah.
And then I loved Donnie raising a beer to the pit crew. I loved that. And then Princess says, "To all the people we saved," and Abbott adds, "to all the ones we couldn't." And, Javati, Carly mentioned it earlier. It was very cute where Javati, they tossed her a beer and she's like, "Wait, I'm not old enough to drink this." And Robbie's like, "Hey, you're old enough to intubate someone, or you can have a beer." And Mateo makes a joke about not telling her mom, and she laughs, but then she's like, "Seriously, don't." And then Robbie's like, "All right, I'm out of here. I'm going home." And we exit the way it began. Robbie walking to work, and now Robbie walking home. I loved it. I just loved it.
That really was a perfect way to end it. It was sad. He was lonely. It was him walking off into the sunset alone again, but perfect. And I think perfect for the character too.
Yeah.
The Javati thing made me laugh. I don't want to skip over that because it reminds me of I'll be 50 in a couple of months, and I still am very reluctant to cuss in front of my mom.
I have so crossed over that path. I still don't do it in front of my dad, but I do in front of mom.
No, like 3 years ago, I was like, I'm 46. I'll say shit if I want to, but it usually comes out more like shit.
Yeah.
So props to Javati for recognizing you don't want to cross mama.
Yeah, please don't tell my mama. All right. Anybody got anything else they want to add about the main points of the episode before we head into chart notes?
No.
One thing that I want to say that I missed it when we were back there talking about Robbie's melodramatic moment with the parent where he took him into the morgue. I give him some grace for that. I'm also biased because one of the cousins that I helped take care of a lot when she was little, after I had moved out and she struggled a lot in life. She's had some issues, but she was doing badly in school at one point, and I literally took her to a graveyard. Stupid.
You were scared straight. That's what both you and Robbie did in that. It was a scared straight moment.
Yes, I tried, and it failed as spectacularly as Robbie's moment did too. I was 23 probably, and she was, 15. And I'm like, look at this grave marker. This person lived, and there's a date where they were born and where they died. And that dash in between is what matters. It didn't work. Hey, guess what? She didn't turn her life around after
Oh my God. I want to see 23-year-old Mandy doing that. I could see you doing that now.
Right. I haven't become noticeably less melodramatic. But anyway, I just wanted to, because I meant to bring that up earlier and forgot.
And like too, if you're talking about Taylor's character being like that caretaker, that's definitely how I was with Joey for those 2 years. It was exhausting. It was emotionally and physically draining. But I wouldn't have done it any other way,
Yeah.
But there were times and I would have our dumb little fights, then we at the end of the day we need each other. So we always meet up the next day if anything. So they really shine a light on that,
Yeah. The Joey she's talking about.
Sorry.
No. I'm glad you brought it up. The interview we did with Justin Wade, he mentioned his character being named after someone named Joseph, and the one she's talking about, that is Joseph. And Carly took very good care of that young man for a long time, and he's a very important part of her story. So that's what she's talking about there. All right. Chart notes, everyone?
Let's go to chart notes.
All right. So we have McKay. Thank God she didn't get arrested. Bravo to her for making that speech to David, being straight up honest about what it's like for women. The 2 tears that rolled down his face is the first time that I think anyone has gotten through to him. I hope he talks to someone. Robbie still fucked up with her. He still made it as though she did something wrong and it's all her fault. And then her sweet smile as she passes David's room on the way out, and there's a mental health specialist in there talking with him. And then she gets a call from Harrison.
Yeah, that I was ready for us to get to this because I was very disappointed. I would love to pick the brains of the writing staff about this specific plot point, because I definitely am biased. And as a woman who feels very passionately about our safety and the disadvantages that we face in this country, in this world, throughout history, as somebody who has been the victim of violence in the past, it really upset me. Like, maybe I took it way too hard that Robbie is still not seeing at the end of this. I don't think that it would have been an incredibly difficult or out of the realm of reality emotional arc for Robbie to finally grasp how very wrong he is to hold on to his opinion. She shouldn't have. Nowhere did he ever acknowledge she did the right thing. She did absolutely the right thing. Robbie blew that. He blew that. Even at the very end, he's not arguing with her anymore, but you can tell by his facial expressions and the way that he's communicating with her that he still thinks that she made this boy's life harder. And you know what? She may have made his life harder for a moment, but like Sam covered in the last episode, as a mental health expert, she did exactly what she should have done. Probably should have done it sooner. I'm sorry that Robbie's upset that she's had to go over his head, but I loved the speech that Abbott had on the roof. But as a mom, as a woman, as a friend to other women, I liked that speech better because it needed to be said. That when she told him, do you know what it's like to be afraid? And he said, well, yeah, today. And she's like, okay, now imagine that is every single day of your life.
With 50% of the people you come in contact with.
Yes. You wrote a list of girls that you wanted to eliminate. And that is terrifying.
What if your mom was on that list?
Right. And the way that she got through to him, I mean, I don't know that anybody else really could have. It was great that they had McKay make that breakthrough to him. I just wish that we could have seen Robbie acknowledge that she was never in the wrong for that situation and that she did exactly what she should have done. And Robbie, I give him grace because he had so many other things going on, but I really would have loved to have seen him acknowledge that he did not have a leg to stand on in that argument.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that boy's day got harder, but it may have saved his life and a lot of other lives.
Yep, I agree with you.
One more thing I do want to say about McKay is when she was leaving and just that little tip of the hat to Fiona Dorff and her father, Stephen Dorff, being Chucky. That was so cute when she was on her way out. And Harrison said, I'm watching a movie with Granddad, or Granddad just turned on a movie. It's Planet of the Apes. And she said, what did I tell you about watching scary movies?
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was watching, I don't know the Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Right. But that he's literally sitting there with Chucky, talking to his mom, who has been in the Chucky franchise for most of, a big part of her life. I'm sure that was deliberate on the part of the writers, that was McKay's last line in the series.
Yeah.
And I caught it and I thought it was really cute.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that in there. That was a very good call.
And I think David also is on with Chucky. I know that they have a work history, him and Fiona. I don't know if it was Chucky exactly, but there's something.
One of our listeners in feedback last week, David played one of the sons, I think, in the TV series.
Thanks for bringing that up, Carly. That's another cool little callback there.
Sorry, I'm not good with names of actors and character names. Like, I've just now gotten everyone's name down. Like, of course, for the finale, I can look at it without.
Yeah.
Sorry, dude, if you listen to this.
I want to give that actor props, though, too, before we move past
really
him.
Cool.
He's so good.
Mm-hmm.
He had such a vulnerable look in his, and that's part of what, I really wish that they'd gotten a little bit into the fact that McKay has a young son, or a young man that she is raising up. And Becky and I both have boys, and it's just that vulnerable, but I have to protect that at all costs. But I'm dying inside, I'm scared. And this is coming from a place of fear. Just like he did such a great job at that role.
Yeah, he killed it.
No pun intended, right? He didn't kill it. And at the end of the day, that's the important thing.
Oh. All right, so I see you added a second chart note here. So I'm going to let you cover that one before I dive into my favorite character.
So the only thing I really wanted to say was another moment that I saw me and you, Becky, was when the dad said, she's a really good mom, I promise. And Princess and Dr. Ellis looked at each other like,
Yeah.
Good mom's ass. Yeah, she's such a good mom. She's willing to let her kid die because she doesn't want him to have a spine. Just make that make sense. You don't want your kid to have a spinal injection, a spinal tap, but you're perfectly willing to roll the dice and let them potentially die or suffer all of this huge laundry list of things that these doctors have told you could result. It's mind-boggling.
I did like that. Look, I forgot about that. That was good. All right, so I'm going to go on to talk about Gloria. I'm glad she didn't push on the McKay thing. She's like, do I want to know? And he's like, no. And she said, okay. And then, when Robbie was giving her the rundown, I was just exhausted listening to it. And I had to rewind several times to get the numbers right. So I don't know how he was able to keep track of that. And then she cuts him off and immediately takes a phone call saying that they need to be back up and running. And I wrote here, it's all about the Benjamins, baby. I'm aging myself right now. I do appreciate that she gave them a pat on the back. And I laughed so hard at both Abbott and Robbie, their comments when she was trying to get them to do the press conference. And they're like, no, it's not happening.
You know what I loved about that scene? And then it's the first time that it's occurred to me. And maybe it's just because that dynamic really didn't come through until Abbott came back in. They had each other there at the end. But I love that she called them emergency room cowboys. But B, I realized what her vibe is. She is the police chief that's the commissioner's got my balls nailed to the wall. You two, get in here. And like going off on the brilliant, but troubled detectives so that was that whole vibe, was that she was like, the stereotype of the police chief.
That is brilliant. I'm imagining Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was picturing. Yeah, and she's that police chief that looks like he was always 15 seconds from a heart attack.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next thing I have is the numbers that we just talked about. It just was a wild amount of numbers. I just thought it was worth mentioning. 112 mass casualty patients, 106 lived, and all of that in 3 hours.
Yeah, that's insane.
All right, so we have Dr. Ellis. I just wanted to just give a minor Dr. Ellis appreciation post for dealing with a reporter who was saying he had the rats on the bed. And she just looks at Chen and she's like, he has a head injury and is showing signs of hallucination. Put him in line for the CT. I love her continuing on Santos's torture of this person, and then her getting that picture of the chick with the fork in her nose.
That's totally us too. Yeah. I know we've already gone over it a little bit, but man, I hope she's coming back for season 2. I really like Dr. Ellis. I think she's got a vibe about her that I just really, really like. And that was very us. When Abbott said we're going to get our utensil specialist on this. And then she's like, do you mind if I take a picture?
For medical documentation.
Oh my God. Just the way that accident happened cracked me up. Like that she was chasing her brother to get a bite of his takeout.
That's me and Darren.
Well, I thought about you and your brothers, actually.
Well, it's more like me and Darren because I always want to eat his food rather than the food I got. And so I'll be chasing you with a fork.
It reminded me of when I was 14 and Tony was 10. That was prime. Like our 10 to 14 to 12 and 16 were like the worst times in mine and Tony's relationship, where we fought constantly. And, I was watching her and I was supposed to be in charge, but she didn't listen to me. She didn't listen to shit. And we were bored, and we had already been threatened within an inch of our lives. If we called my mother again at work, somebody better be dead. And so this one day we're getting into it, and I may have been teasing her gently by saying Tony got told, which is my uncle used to do that, and it would make her really mad. It just meant like Tony got in trouble. I don't even remember why I started chanting it, but I started chanting Tony got told. And so she went and got books and started throwing them at me. And then she got a tennis racket and started hitting me with it. And I chased her into the back room, and my sister is tiny. And I was not big either, but I was trying to get the tennis racket away from her, and I grabbed her arm and I pulled it behind her back, and I may have given her a hairline fracture in her wrist.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we had to call my mom. And the first thing she said was, somebody better be bleeding. And I was like, well, blood. So she had to come and get her and take her. And, I was, of course, in deep, deep trouble. I had to clean the house while she was gone to the doctor and everything. But when she got back, she had calmed down a lot, and she knew I was beating myself up about it. Because I do love my sister. I wasn't proud of myself for hurting her. Anyway, she started telling me about how once they got in the car, Mom was like, okay, so what happened? And Tony's version was, well, we were playing, and I don't know how it got to the what it did, but all of a sudden, Mandy just grabbed my arm and started twisting it behind my back.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, right. Kudos to the very brief moment that Mom had in that scene. Is like, I could see all of the same exasperation with her kids in the hospital. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, siblings. Back to Dr. Ellis, though. Love that woman. really hope she comes back. I want to just reiterate that one more time before we completely move on. If anybody's listening to this, please bring that woman back for season 2.
She's amazing. I too want to see her. I want to see Chen back too.
I want to know when Collins is going to turn her phone back on.
Oh, she's checked out.
I feel like she's Thomas Jefferson in the Hamilton musical. What did I miss?
Yeah.
She's just waking up, wiping the sleep out of her eyes, percolating some coffee.
She turns on the news and she's like, oh.
Ooh.
And that's where she flips on her phone.
Yeah. But I do wish that we'd had some kind of callback to her there in the last. She was such a great character. I hate that we didn't get to at least have a glimpse of her again at the end.
Yeah. Maybe she'll be back next season.
Fingers crossed. I hope so. Tracy Ificor did a great job.
Yeah, they all did. I mean, they all rocked my world.
Mm-hmm. Not a bad performance in the entire, even the characters you didn't really love, you love to hate them. So
yeah,
I hope they're proud of themselves. They did a great, great job.
So the final and most deserved chart note of the season. Let's all say your name on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Myrna! Myrna's back again. And true to form, I am left with more questions than answers.
Looking good, Dr. Abbott. Hey, fruitcake.
Dr. Abbott really blew it on that one because, damn, look at Myrna.
I mean, she looked amazing all in her little sassy outfit and her hair did.
Looking fine. Where did she have a seizure? Still don't know why she's been arrested. Where'd these clothes come from?
Yep.
What's going on?
Give us a Myrna side story.
Did I miss something? He's go in. She says, there's Myrna. She's all dressed to the nines. Last time we saw her, she's sitting in a wheelchair handcuffed. Now she's dressed all nice. And the police are clearly taking her back to jail, I guess. And he just says she had a seizure. Where did she have the seizure?
See, here's the thing, though, is I don't think they were taking her to jail. And that's part of what is glorious about this show, especially about Myrna, is we don't know anything,
We don't know
but
nothing.
these boys do.
Yes.
The cop knows Myrna had a seizure. Here she is again, and she's back in handcuffs, not because she's going to jail, but because they need to get her back into the hospital for what I'm assuming might be the psych ward. But that's the glory of it. I don't know if I want to know because
I kind of
it
like
makes
it.
Myrna more interesting than all of these people around her.
Yeah, I kind
know
of like it.
everything. And we don't, but we just get little glimpses.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Abbott's like, fruitcake. And Robbie's like, yeah, you don't want to know.
Yeah. I kind of dig it. I'm surprised. Like, I would have said I wanted like more resolution on Myrna, but now that I know she's safe,
That's all I needed.
This is great.
Because in my head, I know what Myrna did during that 3 hours shit was hitting the fan. No, I know Myrna took the shooter down. I know Myrna got a romp with Earl and some sandwiches. I know what Myrna did. So I just am glad to know that now she is home and she is safe and I can sleep tonight.
see, I feel like Myrna got out of there, went off to a casino. She hit a jackpot. She's epileptic. The lights are what sent her into a seizure. And then they had to pick her back up, bring her back. And now they're taking her back to prison where she's going for the 2 husbands that she chopped up in the meat grinder. That's my Myrna backstory.
All right, listeners, let's have a Myrna backstory appreciation post. So please end feedback. You've got our email. We'll give it to you at the end of the episode. Send us your Myrna backstories. And where was Myrna?
The wilder, the
during
better.
The 3 hour shooting, and hold nothing back.
Because that's the beauty that these writers have given us, is Myrna's whatever we want her to be.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, I don't want any more information. Just keep giving me little glimpses of her.
Yeah.
Making funny notes and comments, and I'll do the rest. I will do the rest.
I love that they made her glamorous too at the end. I love that when they got her out of the hospital clothes that she was a baddie. Like,
Right. She's like,
because
look
that's
at
what
me.
we knew. If we don't know anything else about Myrna, that confidence is earned.
Yes.
Yeah. Myrna can throw down. And I won't elaborate on what I mean by that, but y'all know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, we know. Earl knows.
Earl knows. And Robbie really might do himself some favors if he'd find out. He might be a little less tightly wound. I don't think he could survive Myrna. I don't think he could survive that ride.
No, I don't know anyone who could except for Earl.
Maybe Earl. That's about it.
And the only reason Earl could is because he's had enough sandwiches. He can keep up.
Yeah. That's why he needs all that fuel.
All right. Anything else to add on this episode before we move into final thoughts?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Carly, since Mandy and I have run our mouths for the majority of this conversation, I would like you to go first and give us your final thoughts.
My final thought is thank goodness for another season.
Yeah. Amen. You nailed that one.
Yeah, it's just funny because I knew the show was going to be a hit before it even aired. I knew it was going to get all these praises and this and that and stuff. And so the fact that they got a second season literally 4 days after they wrapped was really amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all.
What you got, Mandy?
I'm going to skip final thoughts because I feel like I've spent quite a bit of time going over all of my thoughts for this episode. And I've repeatedly kind of said that I think it was an amazing season and I'm so glad we did the show. I think that everybody that involved in this cast and crew are top of their game. And I'm just super excited for a season 2.
Well, I just wrote, I cannot say enough about this show. While we've become accustomed to shows having big cliffhangers or big wow moments at the end of a season, the Pitt season finale is just ... simple. Like the whole season. It's real. It shows the reality of these professionals. And at the end of the day, it's done. I love that. I absolutely loved that about this finale. I genuinely don't want to have to wait 9 months for more, but if the next season delivers like this one did, I have no doubt it'll be worth the wait. And I want to thank the producers, writers, actors, set design, craft services, the entire crew for creating this show. Mandy and I have been friends for a long time, but I can honestly say covering this show together, I feel like our friendship has grown into something completely new, and I'm grateful for that. And thank you to this show for bringing people like Carly into our lives. And like Mandy said last week, we've got a little community now, and I love it. So thank you. Fun every week. And I can't wait till next season. So I almost cried there for a second, but there you go.
No, it's been life-changing. You're not being ridiculous at all, Becky. You're right. Our friendship of 30 years is deeper than it was before we started having these conversations about some really serious things. And Carly, and just everything you've done for us I can't thank you enough. And everything you've done for this show, a lot of people owe you a debt of gratitude. And I'm really glad we did this.
Yeah.
My pleasure. And that's how I feel with the cast and crew. People just look at the big stakes, right in front of you, but I see everything and I know what it takes to run a show like this. I have a lot of respect and love for all crew members, all cast members and stuff. But the show was intense and they nail it. We have to wink, 5, sometimes 6 days a week of 12, 15-hour long days. So I have a lot of respect for every single person on that show.
Same. Well said. All right. So Mandy, you've got some trivia for us. What is it?
Real quick, I want to make sure that I feel like most people who listen to us are pretty smart cookies. But just in case anybody out there is unaware of exactly how dangerous measles can be, because you were lucky enough to be born into a country and a time that did trust medicine, that we, until recently, had basically eradicated it from the United States. And this is from the CDC. Measles is one of the world's most contagious diseases, spread by contact with infected nasal or throat secretions, coughing or sneezing, or breathing the air that was breathed by someone with measles. That's how contagious it is. The virus remains active and contagious in the air or on infected surfaces for up to 2 hours. For this reason, it is very infectious, and one person infected by measles can infect 9 out of 10 of their unvaccinated close contacts. It can be transmitted by an infected person from 4 days prior to the onset of the rash to 4 days after the rash erupts.
Get vaccinated.
Vaccinate your
your kids. This is not something to stand on a, what's the word? Soapbox, whatever. Just be smart.
There are immunocompromised people and people that, for whatever reasons, cannot take vaccines, but that number is very, very small. The vast majority of us, especially the immunocompromised, we depend on our fellow citizens to think about the people around them, not just themselves. And just because you think that needles are icky or you Googled a lot does not make you smarter than infectious disease experts. You're only able to have complex opinions about this disease because you were fortunate enough to never have to see it in front of you killing people. Vaccinate your kids, man. But the second note is that you'll notice when they were talking about John Blair Deaver, when they were doing that procedure on
Hector.
Yeah, they mentioned John Blair Deaver. I loved that little interaction there because you know what a history nerd I am, and made me want to find out more about him. So John Blair Deaver was appointed chief of the surgical department at German Hospital, which is still a hospital he was the chief of surgical department and held that position until 1931. He was appointed surgeon and chief shortly before his death. He was a phenomenally prolific surgeon. He's estimated to have performed 100,000 procedures during the course of his medical career. He's the inventor of the Deaver retractor. That was what they were talking about, a medical instrument still in use during deep abdominal surgery today. Deaver taught anatomy and surgery at UPenn and was made John Ray Barton Professor of Surgery in 1918. He was also professor of surgery at the Women's Medical College and a surgeon at the Philadelphia Hospital and the Kensington Hospital for Women. He was among the founders of the American College of Surgeons. Deaver was considered an innovator and sometimes a radical in the field of abdominal surgery. He revolutionized abdominal surgery, particularly the appendectomy. As a proponent of immediate surgery to address appendicitis, Deaver's approach was often considered aggressive at a time when surgical interventions were not the norm. However, he typically performed all surgical actions and thus placed responsibility on himself for both the decision to operate and the outcome of the procedure. So he would do the surgery himself just because it was still fairly new and experimental. And that way he took all of the burden on himself for the outcome. I loved this quote that he had. Cut well, get well, and stay well was a motto often repeated by Deaver. And in 1924, he stated, if when I am taken to my reward, I am known as nothing else, I shall be satisfied to have as my epitaph, he fought a good fight. His life was a continuous war on the vermiform appendix. I just thought that was funny.
That is very funny.
Yeah. So that was it. I just wanted to teach us all a little bit more about John Deaver.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, let's head into show notes and news. Our interview with Ambar Martinez is out, and it's amazing. Such an incredibly talented and kind person. Please check it out. And our interview with Crystal McNeil had to be rescheduled, but we are going to be talking to her next week. So keep an eye out for that interview. As always, we will let you know once it's published.
I also, again, want to say thank you to Carly and the Pitt fan page. We found out more information about season 2 via an article by Samuel Long with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He says, while visiting Carnegie Mellon University Wednesday, executive producer and director John Wells confirmed in an interview with the Post-Gazette that the Max medical drama will film a portion of its second season in Pittsburgh. Scribes for the Pitt, including Noah Wiley, are already back in the writing room, and Max is planning to release season 2 in January of 2026, according to Variety. It will take place 10 months after season 1 on a 4th of July weekend. Wells told the Post-Gazette the show should begin filming in the middle of June. Season 1 was mostly filmed more than 2,400 miles away from Pittsburgh at Warner Brothers Studio in Burbank, California. But the production crew spent a few days filming at Allegheny General Hospital in September. 1 year later, they will be back. It'll probably be the second week in September or the third week. We're still not exactly sure when it'll fall, so we're trying to figure it out, Wells said. He said he was enamored with the beauty of the city's landscape and aesthetic, both of which he hopes are evident in the Pit. The weight of Pittsburgh, that kind of transition from the heavy industrial town into something that's still trying to preserve and understand its heritage, we're just trying to get that feeling across, Wells explained. That's important to me. And I want to take this moment to say, I know that I gave Pittsburgh a little hard time about its name a minute ago, but my husband travels quite a bit for work, and he believes that Pittsburgh is the best town in Pennsylvania. He absolutely loves it, and we're definitely going to go visit together one day.
So via an article with Screen Rant written by Ryan Northrup, the Pitt Season 2's release window gets a new update, with Max's plans for the show revealed. Created by R. Scott Gemmell, the medical drama premiered earlier this year following Noah Wiley's Dr. Michael Rabinovich and his colleagues as they juggle personal crises with their work as emergency room staff in a Pittsburgh hospital. Reviews for the Pitt Season 1 have been generally very positive from the critics in this amazing podcast. I added that part. And the show has been a major viewership success for Max, with the streamer officially renewing it for Season 2 in mid-February. In a recent God bless America. In a recent interview with Variety, Wiley reveals that he's currently in the writer's room for the Pitt Season 2 and plans to start filming this June. The series is eyeing a Season 2 premiere in January of 2026, with Max planning to release new episodes of the show every year. As for Season 2's story, it is expected that the sophomore outing will pick up 10 months after the events of Season 1, when Dr. Michael Rabinovich is, quote, no longer able to pretend to himself that he doesn't need help, Wiley teases. I am so glad we don't have to wait too long for Season 2.
It's going to be a long 9 months, but yeah, that's awesome. It's not going to be 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
All right, so let's head on into feedback. Got some good stuff on this finale. You want to start us off, Carly?
So via YouTube on episode 14, Linda 1541 said, another great podcast from you ladies. I can't believe we only have one episode left.
Me too, Linda. Me too. Via the Pitt's Reddit page, the Barefoot Girl, that should be mine. The Barefoot Girl. I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
Sitting here barefoot right now. You could tell with the finale they wanted to wrap everything up in case it was not renewed. Yeah, I got that too, Barefoot Girl. I felt the anticlimactic tone felt like real life. No matter what happens on your shift, it ends and you go back to the real world and your real life problems.
Yes.
Langdon was offered a good deal from Robbie and should take it. His deflection is classic addict behavior, girl. That's what we said too.
Barefoot Girl, you and I are on the same page.
Mm-hmm. I am curious if there really was a, quote, night shift nurse or if it was him. Whitaker being homeless is a good storyline. A lot of first-generation college kids do all sorts of desperate things to keep going through school. Yes, ma'am, they do. Barefoot Girl, that's a great point. Santos having compassion for him softened her a bit. I laughed out loud at Santos's face when the reporter yelled at the police that they were holding him against his will. The way she shook her head was gold. Agreed. Jake yelling at Robbie broke my heart into a million pieces. Give Noah Wiley a damn Emmy. And I want that kid to have to give it to him.
Preach! Oh, and this is, I'm going to steal this handle. It was about the pasta. All I have to say for this show is that it has forced me to really reflect on my provider trauma and really work on getting better. Yeah.
Oh.
10 plus years as a frontline paramedic firefighter at a very busy department. Literally in episode 2, when Robbie tells Nick's parents about his likely brain death and his mother wails, I was rushed back to the scene of 2 of my most difficult calls. I relived the moment my partner and I held each other in the ambulance bay, sobbing for nearly an hour after losing a little boy. I broke down. I was immediately in the most intense crying session of my life. I had to turn the show off, and my wife rushed to my side to hold me. What this show depicts is so real, and while the literally worst day imaginable part is a stretch, everything they show is as true as I've ever seen. It was so powerful to experience that and know I have more work to do. Thanks, Pitt. Thanks, Noah. Hold your kids close. And I reached out to, it was about the pasta, and commented on this because I did not want to wait for feedback to respond. We had a nice conversation. So they came back, it was pasta came back and added, I followed my father into this career, and I'll never forget the one piece of advice he gave me as I joined. Son, this job is harder than you ever know. You will be asked to be the one pillar of strength for people at their lowest all day, every day. You will be the first face someone sees after a near-death experience, and the last for many others. In all that, never forget how to cry. Feel for all of them and feel for yourself. Don't harden against it. Embrace it. Ask for help when you need it, and I love you. And he said he passes those words along to his new team members now. It was about the pasta. Thank you.
It was about the pasta. You and your dad need to be in that writer's room.
No doubt.
That is so beautiful.
And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that really is the exact spirit of Robbie several times talking to his students. I want to reiterate what Becky said. I just really appreciate that there are people like you in the world. It was about the pasta.
And opening up.
Yeah. If you've listened to us at all, how passionate we both are about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it was about the pasta. If you can reach back out and just confirm for me, I am going to take it that your handle is, that's your take on The Godfather. It was about the pasta.
Interesting. Yes,
I need you to confirm or deny that for me. Because either way, I'm pretty sure that's a great story. So much of life is about the pasta, and I need to know where you came up with that. Okay. Speaking of great names, Loza Baby. Loza Baby shares, it's going to be a long 9 months without this show. Every scene, every main character had multiple I want to hug them moments for me. Agreed, Loza.
Hold on. Before you read this is why I gave you this comment.
Oh, okay. Feeling pretty smug right now for my been on the Santos train since day one fandom. Yeah, Loza Baby. Yeah, we're quality people. I'm a little surprised, taken aback at how many people are shipping Santos and Whitaker.
No.
Same, girl.
No.
You're like, no, those are gay besties. Yeah, she says, I totally got platonic/sibling vibes there. Plus, I hope the show didn't lay the groundwork for all the fun sapphic clues, thank you, to have Santos not be into the ladies. As I wrote in another post, she basically told Javati her mom was hot for the first episodes and got into the Garcia flirting. She chose scissors.
Oh, nice.
She chose scissors and rock, paper, scissors, for heaven's sake. She could be queer and not necessarily only a lesbian. Sexuality is complex. Alex Metz mentioned in our interview with her that she's married to a man, but she identifies as a queer woman.
Mm-hmm.
So Santos doesn't necessarily have to be a lesbian, but it'd be cool if she was. Clearly, we are both super classy, smart, intelligent people, Loza Baby. Glad that you agree with me that she and Whitaker do not belong in a romance.
No, that's...
Yeah, not everybody needs to be dating, guys.
So via the Pitt fan page on Facebook, Jan hears this was an amazing show. Loved the ending. As someone who works in the hospital, I love having my daily beer at Brent too. Absolutely.
And thank you, Jen, for your hard work. Cheers. All right, so Tiffany Treffery, I hope I got that right. That episode just set a new standard by which all future television programs will be measured. Amen. It was riveting from the first moment to the last. Somehow, while leaving room for the future, they managed to give us just enough to satisfy the lingering questions. It was raw, and it felt so very real. I agree.
Melissa Kathleen Shepard, it was so good. It really was. It was really phenomenal.
Agreed, Melissa. Via our Facebook feedback post for episode 15, Mary Warden Good said, what a powerful end with 4 exclamation points. Agreed, Mary. Incredible show, finale, all the things. Can't wait to see what season 2 holds. A miracle. The fools actually agreed to the spinal tap. Agreed. Yeah, that was a miracle. Hopefully not too late. Edited to add, of course, only the dad. Thank goodness he was thinking logically. Of course, only the dad. I'm so glad they arrested Doug. Yeah, we didn't even mention that. Yeah.
Oh,
Good on
yeah.
Dana for pressing charges. I would have liked to seen Doug in handcuffs, getting slapped around by Myrna.
Yeah.
I hope Dana presses charges. Were those bloody footprints leading into the bathroom? They were, girl. Dr. L does not know when to stop. Good grief. 2 missing patients, but only 1 has been realized. Oh, Myrna, with a laughing face emoji.
Maureen Wilson wrote, the stage had been set for the next season. Thank goodness, because I had fallen in love in Syracuse, all of them. I want them to thrive. I hope they all had the best night ever.
Me too. All right. We got an email from Sam with a voicemail attached. And so here are Sam's thoughts on this episode.
Becky, Mandy, what are we gonna do for the next 7 months? Oh my goodness. I was excited for the last episode, and then I'm also not excited because there's no more weekly The Pit. I am very happy that HBO Max and the writers, producers of The Pit are going to give us another season in only 7 months rather than probably longer, which is what I feared, which I think is really smart of the people behind the show. Ride the momentum. It's here. Like, don't make us wait too long. If I read it properly, it's going to take place over a 4th of July weekend. It's going to be insane. We are going to see some gnarly stuff, I anticipate. Yeah, this episode was so good. They did the thing we wanted, which is Robbie's mental health made him just as much of a liability as everyone else there. He was no longer being a great mentor. He tried, but he was really, like, at one point he just froze in patient care, and he was really hard on himself, and it's like, this is what happens when you don't get this stuff treated. Because then you're just a ticking time bomb to go off because anything could trigger you. And, just the parallels between him and Langdon just really stood out for me in this episode. He removed Langdon, rightfully so, because of Langdon's mental health issues being a danger to patient care and staff, and then completely ignored his own. It was just this cascading effect because, yeah, when we know a doctor's doing drugs, like, we know that they can't be doing that. You do need to get rid of them. But you can't get rid of every doctor that has PTSD. There would be very empty hospitals all over this country, especially now. What do you do? And even when the two of them were in that, I think it was the ambulance bay area, wow, both of them were in such strong denial about their mental health issues. Like, I could almost see where Langdon was coming from because, to my knowledge, I'm not an expert, medicine is really strict in a way about this stuff, and I get it to a degree. There's certain professions that are really unforgiving about this, like air traffic controllers and pilots and physicians too, are just, you can't have any mental health problems and do that job. And if you're going to have humans in these roles, then they're going to have human problems. So the idea of either, you don't have anything wrong with you or you're fired is just really, no one wins with that. So, I don't know, he probably loses his license. Like, what he was saying kind of made sense. But what was a huge red flag for me was when he wouldn't take responsibility for the fact that he did a bad thing. And Robbie offered him a way, and then he could do all these steps to keep his license, to keep his job. And he didn't want to do it. And I was like, oh, there it is. Yep, you definitely have an addiction. Because if the big thing was you just wanted to keep your license, then you'd be willing to do anything. And you did a bad thing, but you got caught. Time to face the music. And he was like, don't report me. And I was like, oh, for crying out loud. He's a problem. And he was right to call Robbie out. That wasn't the right time. But yeah, Robbie is just as much of a liability as we saw. So the only person I'm really leaving concerned about for this season is Langdon. Our Robbie has Abbott. More of Abbott next season, please. Not only is he a veteran, he's a wounded warrior, and he sees a therapist. It's like, oh, that's why you're so cool. That's why you're so good at what you do, and you're not getting triggered. Because, oh boy, I bet he used to be triggered. He's seeing a therapist. I was like, yes, shout out. Everyone who works at hospitals needs a therapist. Y'all see stuff that you deserve to have a therapist to help you process that. I did like how he was offering it to Robbie, fingers crossed that Robbie takes it. And then Robbie's like, is it working? And Abbott goes, well, I haven't jumped off the roof. I did laugh at that because that was a very intense scene. As a therapist, I would not, if I heard that my patient was doing that, that wouldn't be okay. But I mean, I think maybe it was just for fun, like being funny, because he's made a lot of progress. It was just really cool to see all these characters coming together. I mean, shout out Dr. Santos and Whitaker, the pairing I didn't know I wanted as buddies and roommates. He screamed, I did cackle. That was very funny. And I don't know, maybe they need to give us a little bit more of their personal lives next season. I can't believe I would want that, but I am curious because when they're not just being doctors with patients, there's this humanness to them that I really appreciated. And yeah, like the drinks afterwards, not my favorite with the alcohol for the processing, but it works for them. It's just more of how we fail our frontline workers and helping them to debrief with all this stuff. People who work in hospitals are freaking heroes, and they just deserve to have mental health help them afterwards. And it's just not there. I mean, Gloria's idea was a press conference. Fuck no. Like, that's the worst idea. Shout out to Dr. McKay. She did a great job. A little bit of suspension of disbelief. I mean, psychology was hit hard this episode. I was like, where's Kiara?
I wondered that same thing.
Poor lady, man. Like, she's been through it. I don't blame her. And it would be mental health or like, peace out. I gotta go home because I have to take care of me right now after this. But I mean, that's a lot to expect a physician to know how to connect with such a severely mentally ill young man. And I thought her character did a phenomenal job because it's drama and the actors were so great. And I can't help but notice how Robbie fulfilled his own prophecy again, where he said, society doesn't teach boys and young men how to deal with their emotions. And who helped David with his emotions effectively? Dr. McKay and his mom. Yep. Again, women having to come to the rescue for this. We will always be 10 steps behind if it's only women that are doing this. We do need men to step up and take care of other men. And, you know, I give some grace to Robbie because he's traumatized, but it's just such a gap in there. So I really liked how she was saying that. And the only other people posting about the violence against women that I know are other women. So it's just this gap everywhere. Even if you know that this is happening, there's just not a lot of people stepping up. So I really, really like that storyline, and I cannot wait for next season. We saw Gloria. Okay, where did she get the clothes? 1, 2. I don't know that. I mean, I think she was at Pitt Fest and she took out the shooter. Not Gloria. I really do think she's like a vigilante in disguise. She faked having a seizure in like a department store or something. She's like, gotta go back to home base now. Oh my gosh, I promised I would make this shorter, but I just love you ladies so much. Your podcast is amazing, and thank you so much for letting me come on. I hope I didn't affect any of the ratings in a like super negative way. You ladies are amazing, and I can't wait to hear more about what you do. Thank you so much. Next season.
Oh, Sam, I heart you. Thank you so much. You are amazing. She added text in the email. Hi, lovelies. Also love that Myrna shows respect to Abbott, but still calls Robbie fruitcake. I want to know the backstory.
Yeah, me too. When she first called him fruitcake the first time, I kind of thought she was being a little bit of a bigot and it was a little bit of a gay slur. But now I think there genuinely was a story that involved fruitcake.
Yeah. So we received a little bit of feedback on our interview with Alexandra and Ambar. On Ambar's interview via YouTube, at Linda1541 said, I love listening to this with a heart emoji. Great interview. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. And our girl, Erica Land, at Erica Land 1831 said, you ladies are killing it with these interviews. Congratulations. Thank you. We don't take it for granted.
Not
one bit. Of the many things that Carly has done for us. We've thoroughly enjoyed meeting and getting to know everybody so far. It's really been awesome.
And then via our interview with Alexandra at Hyacinth 5156, this was so lovely. Thank you so much for doing this and also for picking one of my questions with the heart emoji. Thank you for submitting. We love it.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time, Hyacinth. We appreciate it. At Linda1541 says, again, I love it, with a little heart emoji.
Aw.
Thank you, Linda.
And via Instagram, Emily Azapita finally listened to it, love it, and thanks for selecting my question. Well, thank you, and thanks again, for submitting. We appreciate the questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Emily. And maybe the winner of a really, really good username episode, Fuck the Sunsets. Fuck the Sunset says, such a fun episode. I am so hashtag Team Santos. Yeah, dog. That I'm sad I didn't discover this podcast sooner. I look forward to listening to the discussion on tonight's episode with a little smiley face. Fuck the Sunsets. We're just glad you're here now.
Yes. And like the Minion hater from a couple of episodes ago, I want to know what Sunsets did to you. So let's talk, please.
Yeah, all of you guys that want to tell us your fun stories, go to the Facebook page if you want to tell us about your usernames.
Or email, whatever. We're here for all of it.
We want to know about these awesome usernames. So thanks again to everybody who wrote and called in with feedback, and for all the love. We love hearing from you every week. We don't take it for granted.
Yeah, it's been a great season. Thank you all so much for being here with us. We appreciate it. And as always, a big thanks to the Pitt fan page, the Pitt with Noah Wiley on Max, and the Reddit page, the Pitt, for providing so much amazing content and allowing us to post our episodes on their pages and whatnot. We'll post links to all the pages in our show notes as always, and we ask you to please show them some love. Last week's poll results. So the question was, do you think Langdon will out himself about his drug use in this hospital?
We got this one wrong.
Yep, sure did.
12% said no, I think he'll stay in denial. And 88% said yes, I think he'll spare Robbie the pain of having to do it. Yeah, the crowd was wrong on that one.
Congratulations to the one person who said no, because you were right. So this week's poll, do you think Robbie will get the mental health he needs? No, he'll keep trying to bury it and pretending like it doesn't exist. Or yes, he will absolutely get the help he needs / deserves.
Yeah, and we are aware that Noah Wiley did say that he's not going to be able to ignore it. But I guess our question is, do you think that's going to be forced on him, or do you think at this point he's ready?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And if you would like to get in touch with us, leave some feedback, or just say hi, you can always email or send us a voice message as an attachment like Sam did to whatsontonight2@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comment section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can also be found on Instagram at What's On Tonight Podcast with the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you'd leave a comment, review, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice. So how about we head across the street and have a beer with some of the team and talk about where listeners can find us, podcast recommendations, good TV, movies, or anything else we'd like to share. Mandy, what do you got?
Before I get into that, I want to point one more little thing out here, is that I noticed that Perla was not with them in the park. Princess was there by herself. And for a minute, I thought, oh man, I wonder why they didn't have her in the scene. And then this is how good they are. Perla wouldn't have been there. Perla's Muslim. Muslims don't drink alcohol.
Oh, good catch.
Thank you. As far as podcasts go, I have just released my second episode of my Dinner for Her podcast. This episode was centered around one of the most amazing women who ever lived, in my opinion, Zora Neale Hurston. She was a phenomenal Southern writer. She was a leading light of the Harlem Renaissance. She was an ethnographer, an anthropologist, and she was almost completely forgotten until her reputation after her death was rescued by another incredible, phenomenal writer, Alice Walker. So it was a great episode.
It is. It was so good.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I'm just loving this project, talking to all of these awesome women that I have in my life about women that they get excited about talking about, that they feel like they want the rest of the world to know more about. Women that I love, giving voice back to women that I may have never known but admire. It's awesome. So I hope you guys will check it out. I've got you be found on Facebook at Dinner for Her Podcast. You can find me on TikTok at Dinner for Her Podcast. You can find the podcast everywhere that you find this one. But yeah, come check us out. I would appreciate you joining the conversation. And hey, if you are a woman out there and you feel like you have somebody that you would love the world to know more about, a badass woman from history, send me an email at dinnerforherpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be on the show sometime, I want to have you, and I want your voice to get out there.
And you can also find the link to her Facebook page in our show notes. And we will also share each episode on the What's On Tonight page as they are released. And you did do a really good job on this last one. It's very exciting.
I'm going to try to release every other Friday. So if you do like Dinner for Her, you check it out, you enjoy it, just be looking up. We just released this Friday. So the next one will be 2 weeks from now is my goal.
Well, as far as podcast recommendations, Panels to Pixels is continuing their coverage of the Daredevil Reborn season, and I was able to jump on with Mark to cover the last 3 episodes, so please check that out. You can find it via Facebook and the Pirate Quarter YouTube page. For TV recommendations, I just hope all of y'all are watching the final season of The Handmaid's Tale, because the first 3 episodes did not disappoint. If you haven't seen them, watch it. It's so good. So a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform. Please visit the Pirate Core website. You can find it on our Facebook page. And there you can find our podcast as well as other podcasts like the Slay Lounge podcast with Billy and Will and Dinner with Her with our very own Mandy. And you can also find other projects that Mark is working on.
Well, that wraps up our coverage of episode 15 of The Pit. I can't believe we got here so fast. Congratulations to all of us for surviving this emotional roller coaster. We will be taking a couple weeks off to make time for us to rewatch the season, and we'll be back soon with our season 1 recap. Be on the lookout for feedback posts and also for our interview with Crystal McNeil. Oh man, Kiara, I can't wait.
I'm so excited.
I'm glad that I think it was Sam that brought it up. Where was she? Where was she this episode? I hated that she wasn't there. Also, we're still looking for suggestions on what to cover while we wait for season 2 to come out. Please send some ideas our way.
Please don't be too hard on yourself for things not going your way immediately. You'll get there in time. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
And I'm Carly.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, fruitcake.
Bye, fruitcake.